Ke rata ho dumedisa baena ka lebitso la morena le mopholosi wa ka Jesu Kriste. Ke rata ho leboha the opportunity to come share nabo mama ngalesikhathi senkanyiso yango-June 2021. And I want to thank uNkulunkulu ukuthi ngiyamazi njengenkosi nomsindisi, and I also want to acknowledge ukuthi ngizokhuluma nabo mama abamthandayo kakhulu uNkulunkulu. So I was given bazalwane topic yanamhlanje was in preparation of ukhetho. We know ukuthi after every 3 years siyinkanyiso siyibandla lase-AEC kuba nokhetho. We know ukuthi there could be changes because of COVID, ukuthi singa appointed the new team yet as had planned in November, but things if the extended as an opportunity to learn what is leadership. And bazalwane uNkulunkulu uyibeke enhlizweni yami ukuthi, you know, when you start sharing about things, they start with you. It was very difficult as I prepared this, there was a lot of introspection. And bazalwane, just to go through ukuthi uNkulunkulu ukuthi ufuna ukuthi sibe ama leaders anjani. So as I read the scripture bazalwane, I thought a theme is about relevant for just the beginning of this theme here, leadership, will be to talk about what we call a servant leadership. Umuntu servant leadership unjani? And siyazi bazalwane ukuthi there are leaders everywhere, and singabo mama, we are all leaders in our household. Ukuthi ifamily ixoxeke yazi ukuthi idlani igcokani uclean endlini, it needs a leader to organize it that way. So nasebandleni there's a type of leadership that is required. uNkulunkulu afisayo ukuthi ikhulise ibandla layo in different structures of the church. So we get our reading bazalwane ku the book of Mark, and the whole of the chapter 10 ka Mark ingiblese kakhulu, but I'm going to just read, and I'll share with you some of the verses that I have picked up at the beginning, but I'll talk about them in the middle of my message. So Mark 10:35 to 45 ifundeka kanje, ngifunda nge-NIV. Ithi, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. They replied, let one of us sit at your right hand and the other at your left in your glory. What to Jesu kubo? You do not know what you are asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high official exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, that's my main verse, bazalwane 43. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Bazalwane, this text, James and John, they were very interesting. You know, the beginning of chapter 10, they're talking, Jesus is healing abantu abagulayo, and he's teaching about a divorce, and he's talking to the rich man about how, what is the qualification of entering the kingdom of God. And they probably looked at Jesus and said, you know what, this guy is teaching so well, and they thought, you know what, we are fortunate to be his disciples, but before the other 10 are here, let's negotiate ourselves into this relationship to be next to him, and to be next to him, and they thought by so doing, because they had Jesus probably on the side, Jesus will just agree. But ngiyamthanda uNkulunkulu ukuthi Jesus Christ himself, being God himself, the form of man, to understand our weaknesses, he didn't judge them. He looked at them and he explained to them ukuthi hayi, ukuhlala on the left or on the right is not for me to choose, but whoever wants to be great must be a servant. And we know ukuthi the disciples of Jesus, they were our leaders. We learn a lot from them. And when you look again, go Matthew 20:20-28, uMatthew yena ukhuluma ngokuthi the same James and John bebekhulumele umama wabo ukuthi, sometimes nathi abomama sifuna ama-favors for our children, to say be next to where the good things are happening. But Jesus realized that it's not about connections, it's about knowing to be a servant. And another chapter that I like, John 4, the Samaritan woman. I'll talk about it in the middle of I'll paraphrase about it. I won't read it, Bazalwan. But okay, so I just want to know, Guti, good background. We heard Guti, John and James were brothers and the disciples of Jesus. And we've heard Guti, Jesus did all these miracles, bamtand. And we also heard, as I explained earlier, Guti, Jesus said, okay, whether nyangazi or aningazi as disciples, but you have to be servant. And Jesus acted the servanthood. And I want us to look at what is the definition of a servant. And I'm going to make it with see understanding isimo sanamhlanje, and I'll mix it again with the other things. A servant always listen to their master. A servant ilalela imaster yayo. So Jesus Christ, as a servant, walalela uNkulunkulu, kade mandate ebuya kuJehova. And then the servant in our times is like a waiter. You sit, mandate yomuntu we-restaurant is that I'm going to serve people to make money, but the servant must make sure you are comfortable. He does the mundane, the lowest jobs. He makes sure that you get the water, you get the food, you get served. So we understand ukuthi yena umsebenzi wakho usubservient. It's a responsibility I decided ukuthi uzoyithatha on the basis of what the master has asked him to do. And we see what the master does. The master said, I came to Jesus Christ, go on earth, and umsebenzi wakho ukuthi uphile nalabantu babonise emhlabeni ukuthi I love them, and then ubafele. And Jesus does that. And he exemplifies the servanthood, which as nama disciples inyawa. When I looked at that, I thought, my goodness, you always heard they went from this side of geographically, they went from this place to that place, and it means they walked a lot. So ugeza leza inyawo ezinedust kangaka kwayehlisa uJesu kuNkulunkulu, to know ukuthi the main aim is to get the attention of God, and so that abantu babone ukuthi he's humble enough. So I can give more example about what a servant is. We know abanama servants, abanama helpers, abanama employees. They know some people do the work they don't want. Yeah? So Bazalwan, in our discussion, I just want us to look at if we want to really work as servants in the church of God, how must we be servants? So firstly, we must be like Jesus. We must treat others with respect, with care. We must also understand their human needs and seek the best for them. And we must be the example lega Jesu, yokuwashi inyawo, the example lega Jesu ukuthi understand ukuthi, what, this John and James bakhulumisa ubuweak, but what, I still love them. Servants understand ukuthi banamaphutha benjalo. So that's how servants should be. The other thing is that servant leaders should be, they must also be committed to make sure ukuthi the people ababasevayo they grow. Ma uyi-servant leader awuthuswa umuntu okhula ukundlula, because the aim is to make sure that everybody grows. And bazalwane, we know ukuthi as leaders we go through a lot of things, but in our discussion today we'll also hear ukuthi servant leaders commit themselves to prayer, because every step of the way, I mean, we saw what Jesus did. As ahamba nama-disciples, got a shy short left, ayothandaza, a shy short left, because he has to ask the master, which master uthini. So when you're a servant leader, you always are in contact with the master. So it's very important ukuthi sibuyele kuNkulunkulu, sibuze umaster ukuthi sifunani. But I just want us again, bazalwane, ukuthi sibheke the characteristic of a servant leader. A servant leader in a characteristic, I know we're reading a lot of leadership books, but I just want us to focus on the few things that which I think are very important for now. A servant leader in a foresight and have a vision. Maubega what Jesus did to John, James, not John. He didn't hey, you know what, these guys, they don't know anything. He actually had an opportunity of telling them about servanthood, even though as what they were asking was more human, was not heavenly like. So bakhula ngokuthi ba understand ukuthi uJesu understand ukuthi no abalang khona, so I have to pull them through. So they have a foresight and have a vision. And when I said earlier, I'll talk about John 4, the Samaritan woman. When Jesus went through Samaria, we knew ukuthi Samarian, amaJuda nama-Samaria, they were enemies. They were ngazwani, they had issues. The disciples were not liking ukuthi badlule lapho. The disciples were thinking ukuthi uJesu manje makadethi bandlule through Samaria bayofuna something to eat. Why is he waiting at the well? And he doesn't even have nento yokukha manzi. Why is he waiting there? But Jesus knew, the servant knew what the master wanted. He knew that there will be somebody coming there as ofuna manzi. But the main aim of servant was that as a letter a reconciliation with the Samaritan and the Jews. And as a tshela lama Samaritans ukuthi no, there's a savior nazi nina. Ningazongitshela nge Jacob's well. There's more than there's living waters that you need to know about. And he forgot uJesu ngokuthi he was hungry. He forgot ukuthi he was thirsty, because the mandate yalong tumile was higher than what everybody saw. So as a leader, always have foresight and have a vision of what the master have. And I want to quote Stan Tola okhuluma ngokuthi another characteristic that we should have is having character. Uthi leaders know how to link motives with methods. They have the personal willingness to do the right thing, make tough decisions, and also make spiritual decisions. So that's what leaders do. They know how to link motives and methods. The disciples, mababonu Jesu, the Samaritan woman, they had suspicions. They have, what is this Jesus doing with the Samaritan women? But because Jesus had the mandate of the master, he knew, yes, there's hostility between the Samaritans and the Jews. He wanted to fix that. He knew that he was speaking to a woman who will bring more people, Samaritans, to know about Christ. And so we can see when the servant does what the master does, we are called for analysis into the way the flesh is looking for them. The flesh was looking for water. The flesh was looking for was thirsty. But Jesus made sure konke kuba overlooked, and he sees, or at the bottom he sees a field ready for the harvest. So the issue is, as a leader, do you have that character to see what you asked to see, or are you seeing the motives? So that's the second characteristics. And the other characteristic of a servant leader, affirma abanye. You know, as a leader, you realize that You are sometimes fortunate to be put in that position. There are other people who are better than you. So when they are better than you, let them flourish under your leadership. Affirm them. Laba who are weak, affirm them. So servant leaderships affirm others. They make sure, Jesus made sure the Samaritan woman who could only get water during the day was affirmed to be the best to save a few Samaritans that came to meet Jesus. And leaders, again, the fourth thing that we have to look is that they motivated. They motivated. Isimo asibashinji. Leaders are motivated by prospects of success than fear. When a leader is given a project, ngaba yini project, unokuthi athi izofeyila, he must just be pushwe, abe motivated ukuthi I'm going to succeed, then I'm not going to make it. So bazalwane, let's try. I like James and John kakhulu because bebeyiphapela mabayicelela kuJesu ukuthi bafunani. And the good thing is that they tried their luck. They were leaders, co-leaders with Jesus to call people to know the gospel. But they tried their luck to say, can we sit on the front and laugh? And when Jesus said no, they stayed because they saw the benefit of no Jesus. So leaders always make sure they stay motivated and they can ask, and even no is an answer, Kuma leaders. So you don't get motivated because you don't get what you want, but you always try. The fifth thing that I need us to know about that is that leaders accept feedback. John and James accepted feedback, it was not nice. And Utu Michael Galp, success in any area requires constantly readjusting your behavior as a result of feedback. Appreciate feedback from people and get clarity, Nzalwane, if you don't understand why their concerns are. If you are in leadership and somehow people didn't approve of some action that you've done, just find out why. How can I improve? Don't just go out and say, I'm science low. So servant leaders probe more to say, okay, let discomfort yan. No, don't come to conclusion. Just accept feedback, even though it's negative. Because time is the real thing that can cause, that can give real answers. Because if I understand, with time they realize you're not danger, you're actually on their side. But accept feedback, maunikezwa. If you don't understand ukuthi bathini, ngomoya oyithobile, just find out ukuthi how can I help you. And good leaders enable others, bazalwane. They help those who are doing poorly to do well, and they help those who are doing well to even do better. Good leaders are balanced, bazalwane. Man uyi-leader usebandleni kunomama ongayenzi nix, ungamyeki for 3 years angayenzi nix. Make sure that you understand where their potential is, elevate that lady to a better level so that akule, because you're not going to be a leader for long. That lady, awazi ukuthi yini uNkulunkulu ayifihle kuyo that you need to learn about it. The seventh point I want to talk about, the characteristic of a servant leader, is being having endurance and patience. Bazalwane, ukuthi when conflict arises, when crisis or tragedy strike, when the team loses hope and patience with others, when a star member leaves, ungayeki phansi, because those things happen. Sometimes you are good as a leader because you have strong people, and baya relocate abantu, umuntu asuke lapho esimunye ahamba ayohlala eKrugersdorp. If God is strong kuyo owenza everything, then bese ufila ngathi the world has collapsed. So how do we then apply what we have learned, bazalwane? I've assumed mangala ukuthi will only appoint leaders who are saved, who have a testimony of how they met the Lord. So it's important, like the Samaritan women, to have leaders abamazi uNkulunkulu njengeNkosi noMsindisi. They must be believers. And caution game abandleni, ngiyazi ukuthi siyafuna ama-members, but it is important that we don't have leaders who are new believers. Because lapha ekhundleni bazalwane, ku-discuss into is serious, khuleke ngabafundisi mawuthola umzalwane ongakakhuli that much uvele alimala angaboni ne difference. So to guard the soul yomuntu okhane esindiswa, let's make sure we don't expose them to things abangakafiki nge-maturity yazo. And leaders bazalwane, they have a habit of prayer. So I did explain ukuthi Jesus had all the time to pray. And Ephesians, Paul, Ephesians 6, verse 18, must pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayer and requests. That's what a leader does. Because usuka wazi idingo za wonke umuntu omlidayo ophambi kwakho. So leaders constantly seek the face of God. And bazalwane, we must also know ukuthi leaders, they need to be renewed in strength. When we apply those attributes, those characteristics, azizi nje kuphela, we must know ukuthi siya ezwini likaNkulunkulu silifunda ku Philippians 4 verse 13, it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Mawuzwa kuba nzima wazi ukuthi I'm not alone, I'm with Christ and I know He strengthens me. A growing church bazalwane should seek leaders who would serve and take clue from Jesus. They must be willing to be taught by others. Moreover, sometimes we have leaders who are young, who this is probably older people, and that's where the wisdom is. So you need leaders who learn from older people. You need older people abangadinekeli abantwana abasha, because they are a future church. And we need to understand how that future church operates by listening to how they want things to be done. And they should understand that their master is Jesus. They must also be able to do umsebenzi ongekho muhle. These days, ama-leaders afuna ukuthi ama-leaders nabo chairperson badlela ngale. And sometimes the leaders go badle bangazi nokuthi even the poorest person okade ezesontweni uze engena plate yokudla. So 7 leaders are aware of what's happening around. They go around, they do umsebenzi ongathandeki. And mabasebenza ba complain ukuthi they've done 1, 2, 3 because they know they are sent by their master. One thing also which leaders sometimes you work with the people that you like most, and sometimes you banama favorites. So let's make sure that leaders don't have favorites and they work very closely with everyone. And Lewis, Dr. Edwin Lewis, champions are not those who never fail, but those who never quit. So just make sure you never quit. Continue working with Jesus like John and James, even if Jesus didn't give them what they want. Never quit as a leader. And they must be able to discern the motives and not be carried by noise around them. Make sure ukuthi umsindo or mawuza kunomsindo cela uNkulunkulu ukuthi a discern avule amehlo spiritual eyes to be able to know what to do next. And leaders at the end, they influence people to have the character of God. So bazalwane, at the end, I just want to say, let us be leaders. That by being leaders, we call in more people, not just to the church, but more people will know Christ because we're leading the people of Christ. We're going to be judged more as leaders than as people because irresponsibility plays the weight. So 7 leaders, let's learn from the 7, the biggest 7 who was Jesus. It was good to share with you. Amen.